Hi there. In this lecture we see Janis Klavins against Mikhail Tal in 1949 in Riga. So e4 from Klavins, we see a French defense from Mikhail Tal, d4, d5, knight c3, and now d takes e4. So the center is more open than it usually is in the French defense. Knight f6, bishop d3, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, and now c5. We see c3, c takes, and now bishop b4 check. Here white forfeits castling rights with king f1. If bishop d2, the problem is black has a nice structure here compared to white's, and this isolated queen's pawn could be a problem in the future. For example, knight d7, knight e2, knight f6, bishop drops back. Black has reached a very nice pleasant position here in this variation. So we see king f1, knight c6, knight f3, queen c7, and now g3 with the possibility of king g2. We see bishop d7, a3, the bishop drops back, and now b4 is played. Here e5. This might be a kind of inaccuracy actually. It's ambitious for sure. It looks very logical to go for bishop h3. It looks extremely logical. But perhaps knight e7 might be a safer bet here. For example, bishop b2, a5. Black does have a pleasant position in this variation, winning a pawn here, and you know it's quite nice. With e5, white though doesn't play the right response here. D takes is played. It seems as though here king g2 is one of the better moves. As an example, if rook d8, bishop b2, white does have a pleasant enough position here. If black castles b5, that pawn is a potential liability. That's one of the key snags here with e5. It turns out it could be a liability. And if knight takes d4, this opening up of things, white is looking to checkmate here in this variation, and concessions would have to be made. So for example, this situation is just very pleasant for white. However, white didn't play king g2, white played d takes e5, and now tactics, bishop takes e5, hitting the rook. So maybe this is a surprise move. The opponent may have been expecting knight takes e5. Tal doesn't always play plain vanilla looking moves. If knight takes e5, then bishop b2. This is actually, although the king is inconvenienced, this variation shows that white has got prospects like queen h5, threatening all sorts of things, like mating the two bishops, f5, and these situations end up to be about equal with great play from both sides. But bishop takes e5 was played, and this is very different. We see rook a2. If knight takes e5, then it's a double attack. Queen takes e5, which is unpleasant for white. If rook a2, black can castle queenside, not taking here, because then there's no backfire after this move, rook e2. That's sufficient to be sorting things out, pitting the queen. But Mikhail Tal would have played in this variation castling queenside, one would expect, which means bishop h3 is on the cards, and there would be huge problems for white. For example, f3, okay, check, we take the queen. If bishop takes c6, then check, and then we take the queen. Yeah, it would be very tricky here. Instead of rook a2, if bishop g2, then just taking the rook. So yeah, this would be extremely tricky indeed if knight takes. So anyway, after bishop takes, yeah, there are some problems set here, and white actually plays rook a2, and now all the upsides of this e5 move are shown up. Bishop h3 check, the king's pretty uncomfortable and has locked in the rook. And now, for 50 points, what would you play with black? So Tal here to played Rook d8, yeah. Getting that key tempo on the queen. Queen e2. If queen c2, in fact, there's a good move here on queen c2. That back row has been disturbed. That kind of the weaknesses of the last move. The back row has been disturbed. But I could just play queen d7 here, actually, with a strong idea of queen d1. If bishop d2, knight d4, this would be a strong position for black. For example, here. And queen e6. And there are all sorts of issues actually cropping up with this rook. This rook's actually uncomfortably out of squares, because that is also covered by the bishop here. So say queen e1 though, black can just castle here, and again, you know, the rook's being harassed, and essentially black can potentially win material, for example, hitting the rook, hitting the bishop. So essentially winning material. So it's a very tricky position. We have queen e2 rather than queen c2. But now this goes into something extremely horrible. Guess what black plays here for 50 points? Yeah, it's very, very unpleasant, this position. We have knight d4, not only hitting the queen, but unveiling an attack against the loose, the unprotected piece, the bishop, the unprotected bishop. And actually, white just played knight takes d4, allowing queen takes c1, which is mating. It's absolutely mating. If queen d1, we're just checkmating. Here, though, if queen d1, as another example, then knight takes f3, hits the queen. Yeah. So if bishop takes, we're just taking the queen. You know, otherwise we're going to be taking that bishop again. So yeah, a crushing final tactic, knight d4, double attacking the queen and the bishop. Vicious tactics. So yeah, a very, very interesting game here. So this was the end of the game. Queen takes c1. Tal showing great attacking instincts. There is one variation where a downside is cast over e5, but white had to be quite resourceful to see that non-panicky reaction, non-committal reaction. Just play king g2. It would sort out this bishop h3. The king would be protecting h3. And sometimes, you know, bishop b2, b5, the e5 pawn becomes a liability. It seems this is the way that white should have played, but d takes e5, the unusual bishop takes e5, actually works extremely well in this position, because usually you don't really want to, in general, give up the dark square bishop to a knight like this, but it's the specifics of the situation which override everything, which allow one to break the rules, the principles. Okay, so very dynamic move there, and yeah, this sets big problems now. Collapse of white, essentially tactically. So I hope you enjoyed that game. Thanks so much. Hi there. Thanks for getting to the end of the YouTube video. If you would like to see other Mikhail Tal games, I actually have an amazing course for Mikhail Tal, which is currently at 4.9 with over 400 students. You can check this out from the Kingscrusher TV page. So Chess Strategy and Tactics, Mikhail Tal's amazing games. You can check out some free preview videos as well here. If you do expand all sections, you can see the preview links to get some free previews. So I hope you do check out this course index and the free previews. So I really had a thrilling time actually checking out Mikhail Tal's games. So yeah, the YouTube video here you saw was just a sample from this course. I hope you check it out. Okay, thanks so much. Oh, by the way, comments, questions, likes, shares, all appreciated. And if you did get to this part of the video, please do leave some sort of comment like Tal fan. Okay, thanks again.